Good morning, YouTube. So we're going to be getting into Sam Sulek's posing. I am Josh Montali, and I am a full-time posing coach. And forgive me if you hear dishwashing or dogs going on. I'm doing this in my apartment, and there's some noises going on here and there. But let's get right into it. So Sam Sulek just competed this last weekend, and he took the overall. And everything I'm going to be going over is his posing one by one. For posing coaches, I realize there's a lot of people that have their input about how Sam looked and how he didn't look great, blah, blah, blah. Overall, he won the show. So congrats to Sam. And on top of that, I'm seeing that everybody's acting like they're like judges all of a sudden. Just letting you guys know, I'm not a judge, but a lot of the resources I get for posing coaching is from the Olympia judges, and I focus mainly on the top 5 in the world for every category, and I go off of their posing. And on top of that, I ask around. One of the biggest things I ask from a lot of competitors is, what is the feedback that they get from the judges? And the only feedback I care about are the people from the Olympia panel. Local shows, I could care really less about it, just because most of the feedback that a judge will give you will be based on more muscularity or size, whatever. And maybe some will say posing if they have a good eye at posing, but that's the problem. A lot of people don't have a good eye at posing. I was talking to a posing coach earlier today, and we agreed that there's a lot of good posers out there, but there's a lot of people that also just don't know how to teach. So you can have a good poser, but they can't teach. But there are people that may not be the best posers, but they can teach. So definitely look, when you're looking into posing coaching, look into the people that, these are the 3 things I look for the most, is, are they great at posing, are they good at teaching, and could they bring in results? And once you find those 3 things, then you are safe. I've been doing full-time posing for about a year now. Hit my anniversary just not too long ago. That was on February 10th, special day. And it's, what day is it? Let's see. Just letting you guys know, it's going to be super chill. I like to do these in almost pretty much one take, and we'll just get right into it. So Sam Sulek, we're going to go into, and just a little bit of background about me. I focused on classic physique for the longest time, but if you look at this page and on my Instagram, it's mainly men's physique, because I felt like, hey, no one's paying attention to men's physique, so I focus on men's physique. So I am pretty much the men's physique guy when it comes to posing. But I do have knowledge in classic. I'm currently working with classic competitors and open competitors too. Most of my clientele is from men's physique. And yeah, we've gotten a lot of wins through all categories, through all divisions, and grateful for all of you who trust me in helping you achieve wins. Anyways, let's get into Sam's posing. We're going through, it looks like Pro Fitness Photos. That's the person that recorded at this show of his. And so we're going to start off with his setup. So you always want to set up before getting into your pose. Sam is covering his abdominals right now, and he's like squeezing his chest, shoulders, and pretty much his biceps. This is really good to do before you get into a front double bicep, just because you want to pretty much preamp yourself to exhale, keep the core tight, or even get into a vacuum. And as you can see here, as he does this, he sets his feet up and then he gets into a front double bicep. Now let's look at that front double bicep. So there's a few things. A lot of people are saying he's not conditioned enough, and I can see why, and that's pretty much because his legs don't look as shredded as everybody wants them to be. And the main thing is, I would say it's definitely leg control. All he needs to do is, I like to think of it this way. Imagine just 2 things actually. You want to grip the floor with your toes. It's almost like you felt carpet or grass for the first time, so you want to grip them like this. They're clawing the ground. And with your heel and the outer portion of your foot, you want to imagine you're like corkscrewing your heels down into the ground, and you're splitting the ground apart away in this direction, pretty much. And when that happens, you should be able to fire your quads. Your quads will be forced to bend their knees slightly, and then you push your knees out, and then you're able to pretty much achieve the detail that you're looking for in your legs. Another thing too in his front double bicep is, looks like he has like a pelvic tilt going on. So there's a good chance he's hip thrusting a little bit to make it easier for you guys. So what happens is, if you hip thrust, so look at my waist, if you hip thrust forward a little bit, my waist looks pretty wide. But if I push my hips back, do like a tilt in this way, then my waist looks smaller. And as you do that, it will actually put you in a better position to engage the floor with your quads, and your quads will start adding some detail. One thing that's big when practicing posing is definitely don't rely on a mirror. Like, you definitely want to focus more on engaging your muscles one by one. In posing, it starts from the ground up. So in this case, for a front double bicep, you want to focus on the feet, then the knees, then the hips, and then worry about whatever's on top. His upper body, he's pretty good at engaging everything how it's supposed to be. And then let's move on to a side chest. Side chest is looking good. Probably, and I say probably just because there is not a specific perfect way to get into a pose, but there is a perfect way for that competitor to look better than anybody else, right? So you want to play with your strength, and you want to pose to what looks good on you. So I'd be curious if he could bend his back knee a little bit more so he could push his hamstring against the back knee. Because the hamstring, what you want it to do is you want it to hang, you want it to stretch with that back knee. And because if you flex the hamstring, it actually shrinks. So specific muscles, when you flex them, when they shrink, you just don't look as big. But overall, I mean, he has good legs, so better legs than me, so I wouldn't really critique him that much. And he could engage his glutes a little bit more. The cue that I like to go for engaging your glutes is, imagine you have like a pencil or like a pen going in your butt, and then you're squeezing that pencil or pen just because you don't want it to go in your butt. Sorry, I didn't know how else to explain that. Let's move on to his next pose. And this is a flow. Look, I think it's his routine he does, his individual routine. Next pose is the Arnold pose. Pretty good Arnold. He could engage the glutes a little bit from what I can see here. And, let's actually talk about his trunks for a second. So his trunks could be a better cut. You want the trunks, at least the waistline, well, like this portion right here, the outer portion. You want it to be relatively thin, and you want those thin portions, I can't even think of the word what they're called. I'm not good with clothes, guys. But you want them to be lifted up until it's right underneath your V-line, that V-line of his. It's almost like, I'm sure everybody, you know how there's girls that put on their bikini and they like to like raise the straps on their bikini bottoms really high up, where it's almost like they're bringing it up to their ribs. That's where you pretty much want to apply the same thing when you're wearing posing trunks, just because let's admit, when girls do that, it creates a better V taper, better lines. It emphasizes their glutes a little bit more, and it makes their physique a lot more appealing. So same goes for like posing trunks for classic. You want to make sure you are picking trunks that are going to complement your physique. So, but I digress. Let's get back to the Arnold pose. The only thing I would love to see how it would look is what would happen. Two things. What would happen if he threw his wrists back towards me a little bit more, and if he rotated his chest a little bit more towards the back of the stage? What I mean by that, when you do bicep poses, you always want your chest to face directly to the back of the stage, while your elbow is pointing to the side of the stage pretty much. When you angle it, you could lose some width with this pose. And on top of that, what was the other thing? Wrist back. So if you throw your wrist back, see how I throw my wrist back? Then my bicep peaks would start peaking. But let's see that pose. Maybe his biceps are already good. But that's like something you could play with to see if we can enhance it. So yeah, again, if he played with that and if it looks better on him, then I will go for that. Let's move on to his next pose. He goes into, I call it the Thabbage just because Chris Bumstead hits this pose all the time. The only thing I would change here is, again, he needs to engage the quads. So the arm over your head, this one, into the bicep, you should have your right foot, the heel elevated off the ground, and that foot is coming forward. So this foot comes forward while the left foot gets planted. So if I were to switch it around, if this arm was over my head, then this foot would be slightly forward and it'll be on its toes, and
my right foot would be flat. The reason for that is just if we're being true to mainstream, we just want to be consistent, and the lines look better too. I even showed like a reference of like how it looks, how Chris Bumpson does versus Sam. And you can see the lines itself. I didn't even have to draw a diagram. You can see it right there. Let's get into his back double bicep. So his back double biceps could be tricky. And this is something where it's like through a lot of trial and error, you need to figure out like what looks best on you. Just when you're hitting your back double, your weight should feel comfortable to the point where it's like 50-50 on each leg, and you want to be able to engage the hamstrings. How I like to personally engage the hamstrings is, one, you want to grip the floor with your toes, just like how a front double bicep is, and then you engage the ground in that way. As you drive your heels into the ground and then pushing your knees out, then you're able to engage your hamstrings. But on top of that, what assists me even more is, let's see here, I call it breaking your back, just to make it super simple for a lot of people. So when you, from a side, when you hit a back double bicep, and this is different for a lot of people, it changes all the time for physiques, but you want to lead with your chest and hit a back double bicep, right? But you also, there's two versions of I see this with posing. You see a guy hitting a back double bicep where their back creates a curve, and then you see a guy that creates like it's straight and then it's slanted like this. And that second one is what I would like to see Sam do to see how it would look on him. Because what happens is, so this is my, here, I'm like hovering right now. But if I break my lower back and angle my traps like this, instead of doing this, then what happens is you would be able to see, there's a few things you would see, but you would see the density of my chest and then my bicep peaks just popping out. So that's a good one for you guys to like try out behind the mirror. And when you do that, you should feel like your rear delts are hovering over your hamstrings. And when you feel that, for me personally, it's easier for me to feel my hamstrings and engage them. It's just like that slight body distribution, that weight wakes up my hamstrings and be like, all right, we're engaged. And how your hamstrings should feel is pretty much like if you had like a pole in front of you. We're using imagination, I'm sorry guys. If you had a pole and then you had bands attached to a pole, like rubber bands, and if you put your feet in those rubber bands and walked away like this, you should feel your hamstrings waking up. That's how your hamstrings should feel. Cool, let's move on to the next pose. He gets into a lat spread. I mean, same rules apply. I would be curious to see how it would look if he positioned his legs like how I mentioned before. And it looks like he could get away with doing like a pelvic tilt of like, I can't tell from this angle just because it's just straight on. But I'm curious what it would look like if he tilted his, like let's say his glutes, his upper glutes. If he tilted them up towards the ceiling a little bit, I'd be curious to see how that would look. And same with the delts. If he were to like what I mentioned, break his back and then lean from the traps, his shoulders would look a lot better. And then that last pose is his, looks like he's doing abdominal and thighs. And he does a vacuum, and then he hits the quad, and the quad's engaged. See, when you see his quad engaged, it's just like, you know he has the potential to look shredded, so it looks fine. He just needs to grip the floor with his feet, corkscrew into his heels, and then knees push out a little bit. And then, again, if he were to push his hips back a little bit, making that waist even more smaller, it will look really good. And on top of that, if he had trunks that were sit more higher on his hip, that would look money too. And I mean, he knows how to hit a vacuum, that's for sure. And his abs are like super solid. So cool. Yeah, that's everything, fam. That is a full breakdown of Sam Sulek's posing. And this is just like my professional opinion of how I take everything one by one. I'm also not saying I'm the best, but I do work with a lot of people. And you'd be amazed by all the different changes that they see in their physiques when we book one session, and then rest is history. To close, I just want to share like a few things that are on my mind, because I'm not only an opposing coach, I'm a husband, and I just wanted to share a little bit about me, because today was just like a lot on my mind. So I went on a run today. I've actually been going on runs lately just because I'm trying to build my cardiovascularity, just because I want to get into a new sport here soon. And the sport I want to get into, just because bodybuilding and still get to stay the same, I compete myself, and I plan on competing next year for men's physique and see if I could achieve a pro card. Who knows? We'll see. I've been locked into my meals, everything, but on the side, I'm trying to look for a hobby for myself to really find love in, and to retain my competitive edge that I have. And so I've been running here and there just to build my cardio, because I want to get into professional wrestling for fun, just because it was something I've always liked as a kid, and I developed a great relationship with the WWE as I watched it for years, and then it kind of went away just because during WWE it was probably my peak time as a kid, where I was getting bullied and picked on, and I kind of lost taste for it, just because the bullies that were picking on me were also into it. And it's like I remember in middle school, it just became this reality where it's just like I felt like I was being like threatened physically regularly, and like I had friends who I thought were my friends, like wanting to beat me down, and like it became real, and it was just like which is why I strayed away from it. But being an adult now, and then getting into bodybuilding, having the physique that I guess always dreamed of, and still trying to achieve a pro level physique, and then seeing how I'm like, man, I looked up to The Rock, so I'm just like, I really want to try it out, see what happens. I actually might attend a professional show on Wednesday by the AEW. I believe they are one of like the top professional leagues. There's WWE, AEW, and then there's TNA. I'm still trying to catch up with everything, but it's a little bit about me. And just to make it short and simple, before posing coaching, I used to be a pretty normal guy. I actually tried to escape my potential through other jobs. So I worked in the restaurant industry. I worked at In-N-Out Burger. I worked out at an Italian restaurant. I did door-to-door sales, selling products that I didn't really have passion in. But I did those things just because I was so scared of pursuing something that I feel like I was good at. And my main talent is art. I have an eye for illustration. I've done animation classes, and I've done a lot of illustration school too. I was pretty much kind of taught to create comic books and everything, and figures, and which worked very well. By the time I got into bodybuilding, when I was in college, that's when I found the love for illustration and how they all connected with figures. When I saw my first bodybuilding show online, it was Lee Labrada in one of his Olympias, and I was blown away, and that's what got me into posing. So I got into posing selfishly in a way of just learning that it was a hobby, and it just became something. And then I did my own show for men's physique, just because I wasn't as big for a classic, but I did my own show for men's physique. And then my coach saw talent and my gift for posing, and so he brought me on to his team. And every person that jumps on to the team that wants to do shows, I'm the guy that you come to for posing. And ever since then, I've just worked with, honestly, it feels like hundreds of people. It's been a lot of people. I've worked with people from Singapore to Japan, Taiwan, the UK, Australia, Canada. I've coached a lot of people already in 1 year, and it's been very life-changing. I've helped people become pros, helped people who are pros, and I was even working with someone who was going to go to the Arnold, and that was really huge opportunities came up. And to close, let me go find this one object that is. So huge shout out to Manifest. Manifest is a men's physique brand. Well, for now, we're focused on men's physique. And these are the board shorts that people wear on show day. And I am affiliated with them, so use code Josh. And honestly, I'm not being biased at all. I was very picky as to who I wanted to work with for Manifest. And this is also not paid advertisement. This is just, I'm just passionate about the sport. But these are the best shorts that I recommend you looking into. I am 180 pounds and I wear 28s, and I was 150 pounds on show day and I still wore 28s. So these things stretch. You want these to fit like football shorts. So you want them to be pretty like snug and tight. And yeah, so if you're 5'8" and around 180 pounds, that's me, size 28s. And I would not go off of the waistline. I would go off of the width and like the sizing of the leg, because the waistline will stretch a ton. So there are those. If you guys are ever wanting to get really good high-end shorts for competing, Manifest is the way. Code Josh. And then yeah, other than that, I'll link below my one-on-one sessions. I do, there's 2 packages. There's a 1 session, there's 4 sessions. Most of the guys that I work with roll with the 4. Thank you so much for watching the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Hope this helped. And love you guys. Go destroy your goals, manifest greatness, and be uncommon. Bye.